Hey, everybody, it's Doug Green, and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm very pleased to have with me today John Christian, who's the Vice President of Marketing at Akixi. John, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Doug. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Well, today's podcast is a special podcast of TR Publications and the Cloud Communications Alliance, CCA. We're going to be talking about something I think that echoes what we've heard again and again throughout the spring show season, which is that the migration from very traditional telephony is on. There's some peril, but there's also some great opportunity. And I think Akixi has a very important message for all the service providers. So, John, before we dive into the topic of the day, what is Akixi?
So Akixi are a cloud-based value-added service platform provider. We empower service providers to monetize their business communications through things like advanced analytics, CRM integration, call intelligence, call recording. And ultimately, we exist to help our partners drive revenue, deepen their sort of customer engagement, and really importantly right now, differentiate their cloud communications portfolios in what is a hyper competitive market, and we do that through our Akixi platform with a sort of seamless provisioning experience across Teams, Microsoft Teams, Webex, Broadworks, and more. But they're our sort of prime areas of focus.
So, John, we met up this morning just before the podcast. Your big message seemed to be we're going to have to move beyond minutes.
Yeah, and I think now is never has there been such a important time to think beyond minutes. How do we monetize data, and how do we start to build something, or how as a service provider, how do we start to build a portfolio in market that is going to meet what is a growing complex set of needs from a business customer perspective, be that the pressure from their customers, so be that the pressure on how do I deliver a great customer experience, through to how do I set up my business to maximize operations, to keep my costs down, to make sure that what I'm delivering is the best and the optimum it can be.
Now, I think the Cloud Communications Alliance has been around almost 20 years. I've been hearing the word migration for a long time. So, but what's happening? Is this escalating? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that migration conversation has been driven in particular from the sort of the conversation of the last 5 years, which was Teams, Microsoft Teams is such a driving force within this world. It won the collaboration battle, and what we've been expecting and what we've been seeing is that pull through of telephony migration away from legacy PBX platforms towards Teams phone, and to some extent, Webex calling. And we've seen that happen, as I say, over the last 5 years. I think what's changed, though, is that if you consider that to almost be the sort of a pull factor, I think what we're now starting to see is more of a push at the same time. When you consider the kinds of platforms that businesses that, again, and I should point out, we're referring to the businesses that rely on telephony as their prime source of customer interaction, be that inbound or outbound, right? Those businesses are coming from something. And when you think about the sort of the biggest, those biggest platforms that have dominated sort of market over the last 10, 20 years, it's been the likes of Avaya, Mitel, CUCM. And I think that push piece now is coming from things like or market events like Avaya's big announcement that they're going to focus on the top 1,500 customers. What does that mean for everyone below that? The recent end of life of, I think, the version 14 of CUCM, right? These are all compelling reasons for an IT manager, an operations manager, to question their current telephony strategy and naturally arrive on the move is towards cloud. How do I need to be a part of that, or at least need to have considered what that means for me and my business, and how I can optimize my cost base, how I can optimize, and how I can get more from my investment. And so I think now you've got this sort of the two sides of the coin, which are actually accelerating this sort of momentum that we're seeing.
So in this environment where probably, I think what you're saying is, at the end of the day, the large enterprise, the medium-sized enterprise, anybody really basically that has had an old trusty PBX running in the basement or in the room or whatever, those products themselves are coming to the end of their useful lives. They're not really being utilized. They're no longer being supported. These large organizations that dominated the field are in a way leaving the scene. They're not probably very good choices for ongoing. What do you see filling the gap? You've mentioned Teams as basically winning the war in terms of collaboration, but what are the opportunities therefore for the service providers?
The reality is that as these businesses make these transitions, these modernizations to their telephony capabilities, they're coming over with expectations. And one of the big things we've seen is, they're wanting to move into this new environment, but they're used to having, for instance, call insights. So understanding call behavior, understanding the kind of all those KPIs around how well am I delivering the customer experience, whether it be call waiting, call abandon rates, how quickly am I calling a missed call, or returning a missed call. And so, with that, they come across, and I think one of the challenges that they face and is there to be essentially exploited by a service provider is that within that kind of WebEx world, within the Microsoft Teams world, they are call control first platforms. They're not call analytics platforms. They've added call analytics capabilities, but not to often not to the depth that is required. And that's where the likes of Akixi come in, because that's what we live and breathe, right? We are a call analytics provider that builds our products to build the capabilities to get as close to what an end customer needs to deliver a really rich customer experience. And so, I think the point is that while the service provider can win the seat, they can win the minute, there's opportunity on top of that to then bring differentiation that will, as I said at the start, drive new revenue and bring not just differentiation to, what is native on the Microsoft Teams Webex, within the Microsoft Teams Webex platform, but differentiation to what other providers may be out there offering.
When you say differentiation from whom and what, or how are we different than other things that are offered out there to the same companies?
So one of the big parts of how you can consume, there's kind of two ways you can consume analytics, or analytics can be offered to you. The most common way you'll see in the market is non-real time, near real time, the way that the data is fed out of the call control platform and then processed and then brought back into reports and dashboards. Typically it's graph, and it's therefore not real time. The other way you can consume, or that you can take analytics, is true real time, meaning that you are seeing call events as they happen, and that's one of the things Akixi brings to the table that we spent a lot of time and effort developing. Really, was a complicated piece of development, but we knew that if we could bring that capability, that passes that differentiation on to our partner base to allow them to differentiate their services and products in the market. And most importantly, it means that when you get to that end customer, that, for instance, is doctor's surgery that has KPIs around how quickly they need to answer inbound calls, how quickly they need to, or how they manage that 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. influx of people trying to book doctor's appointments. You've got to see that data as it's happening. And so suddenly now a service provider can actually meet those requirements of the end customer because they can deliver real time. That's an example of differentiation.
And this is really the core of your message today, right? Is that, look, guys, the era of monetizing minutes is long over. There's a huge tidal wave of people that all of a sudden are really getting rid of these legacy systems or choosing something, but you have to be out there with something different than everyone else.
For sure. And I think the point is that, the market is so competitive, and it's from the old world of, the Broadworks world was obviously very service provider dominated because of the nature of the Broadworks platform and how it was deployed. But when you move into, again, Microsoft Teams, you move into direct routing, for instance, you don't have to be a service provider to offer direct routing. So when you start to look at the market of providers out there that have a direct routing that can offer PSTN access on top of Teams Phone, there's probably another 200 Microsoft Gold partners out there, all with a direct routing offer, and that's on top of all of the traditional service providers that also have a direct routing or Operator Connect offer. So that competitiveness, as we said at the start, it's changed, and it's growing because everybody wants to be a part of this Microsoft Teams pie that is bringing growth and and investing in Teams practices. So that differentiation piece becomes really, really important.
So, John, what I think I'm hearing today as we start to wrap up our podcast is that we have that we need to look at analytics. We also need to look at a rich set of solutions, even beyond analytics as well, to be competitive as service providers.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this comes down to that really, really important fact of meeting the customer requirements. Gone are the days of just shipping something that 50% of it gets to the heart of what's needed and 50% doesn't. And so when we look at when I look at what our partners in market, we have over 100 service providers currently selling Akixi. Their customers require different flavors of real-time analytics, maybe with CRM integration, so they can start to get some kind of real-time views as to which of their most important customers are calling them when, as well as call recording. Again, growing as sort of legislation and grows, or legislative requirements grow around the world. We're seeing big demand for call recording. PCI compliance as well. So I think this is a time for again, service providers. The service providers that we're seeing that are leading the race at the moment are those that are building out those component parts that can either offer it as a sort of a la carte based go to market, or bundle it and take it to market as part of kind of enriched packages.
So as we finish up our podcast today, it's really been an interesting journey. I think what you're also saying is that as service providers, we need to change maybe the whole way we look at things, that everything's really changed.
I think that's fair. I think one of the big evolutions that we're seeing is a kind of change in what was that traditional kind of contact center space. I think historically it was always a very binary decision. I need a PBX style telephony platform until I've got a certain number of people that are answering calls, and then I need a contact center.
Right.
And I think as part of that, what you ended up with a contact center solution was big, expensive, complicated platform with a whole bunch of features that often didn't get used. And it's almost like that market is now slightly disaggregating because of, to some extent, because of people like Akixi, and because of a requirement, I think, for the service provider to get closer to the specific requirements of the business. And as a consequence, I think that what we're now starting to see is, that kind of contact center requirement moving a bit, it will become a much more of a sort of enterprise play, 100,000 whatever agents sat in a room answering calls as their primary job. But I think what we're now starting to see, certainly at Akixi, we're starting to see our kind of average size of, or average seat size of an end customer growing quite dramatically. And I think that's because now businesses are working with service providers to really dig into, okay, I need analytics, I need CRM integration, I need call recording, maybe because of local legislation and compliance requirements, but I don't have 500 agents sat in a room, so I don't need performance management and so on. So I think what we'll start to see is that set of value-added services becoming even more relevant as we start to embrace these modernizations and migrations. And I think the outcome is a good one for an end customer, which is I now get much, much closer to a set of features and functionalities that are going to meet my customer experience requirements. It's going to be delivered in a project that is a far lighter lift, and it's going to save me a whole lot of money, which is a good thing.
John, this has really been interesting. Thank you so much for sharing with us a broad-based set of perspectives on what service providers need to be looking at in terms of being out there, being competitive, offering differences, and also understanding the changing nature of the environment that they're in. Where can we learn more about Akixi?
Akixi.com or LinkedIn. Look me up on LinkedIn. But yeah, and we are. I think one of the big things for Akixi is that we are we're very close to the market. We are very close to our partners, the channels that ultimately bring our products to market. So love to have a conversation with anyone who wants to learn more.
John, thank you very much indeed for joining me today. I'm looking forward to a future podcast. I think a lot of the issues that we talked about would make splendid sort of podcasts on their own. But for now, thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug.